So I would like to introduce our first speaker. Giving good talks is hard. Giving good talks online is even harder, but all is not lost. With the right mindset and skill set, we can all learn to stand out online. International market researcher turned public speaking coach, author of Now You're Talking and Now You're Talking Online, founder of, you guessed it, Now You're Talking. She's given speeches in French, German, and Greek. Worked with clients from Oxford University to Tate Modern. Now she's on a mission to explore ways we can all shine online. Prepare to reset your mindset. Please welcome Lynn Roseaman with Take Some Time to Shine Online. Welcome, Lynn. Let's have a round of applause for Lynn.
Good morning. 405 days. 405 days ago, we were all plunged into lockdown and took our speaking online. 405 days later, I fear that many of us are still struggling to cut through the digital chatter and make ourselves heard, really heard. Every time we give a talk or presentation, we're saying something about ourselves and something about our organisations. But ask yourself, is it what you really want people to see and hear? As Andy mentioned, I used to be a market researcher. And so I'd love to start today by hearing your experiences of listening to online talks and presentations. 35 years in market research, and this is the first time I've ever done a Zoom poll. So let's go. Here's the question. Apart from this weekend's conference, thinking about the last 2 or 3 online talks and presentations that you've heard at Toastmasters or indeed anywhere else, which of these have happened? And select all the ones that apply. So let's see the question. I think it might need to scroll down a little bit, certainly on my screen. Oh, it's moving all the time. Are we there?
We've ended polling.
Okay, let me just quickly jot down. 50, no, limited. So, shall we? Oh. Wow. I think the questions have changed slightly. So let's share the results with everyone. Can you do that, or do I need to do that? And I just think it's a really interesting to see that there's lots of screen sharing going on with PowerPoints. And I would ask you to hold that thought and think about how you're using your PowerPoints and how effective they are, but also limited vocal variety and stories, stories with plenty of dialogue. If we've got limited vocal variety, but we've got stories going on with dialogue, there's a bit of a question mark going on there too. So let's keep these results in the back of our minds while we go through this through the session, and I'll highlight things as we go along that might be interesting for us to pick up on. Another piece of market research. Can we clear the share? Can we stop sharing?
Yes, it's cleared.
Oh, has it? It's still on my screen. Anyway, another piece of research that I've actually conducted over the years has been among speakers, including Toastmasters. So thank you very much for any of you who have ever completed one of my questionnaires. And it shows that there are 3 clear communication essentials that we need to be taking on board when we're giving talks and presentations that really stand out and make a difference. First is confidence and confident energy. Second is connection with your audience. And the third is changing the way people think, feel and act after they've heard your talk or presentation. So confidence, connection, change. And how we bring these essentials to life has dramatically changed online. And we need to shift our frame of mind, our mindset, if you like, if we're really going to get the best out of our new online speaking environment. So I'm going to look at these 3, confidence, connection and change, and how we need to deal with them for online. And then hopefully we'll have time for questions at the end. So if you'd like to pop anything in the chat, any comments as we're going along in the chat, Andy and Ilaria are going to help me to monitor that. So let's start with confidence, and I'd like to kick off with a short film courtesy of the fabulous John Drinkwater, or Lord Zoom to his friends. And while you're watching these films, I'd love you to pop in the chat comments about how it's making you feel. So let's see the first film, please.
Hello, welcome. Hello and welcome to this presentation that I'm going to give to you today, which is about a subject very personal to me, and that is how you give a good presentation in these days of online technology. It's very important to give a good presentation, especially in these times of technology.
I don't know about you, but that made me laugh the first time I saw it. But I can tell you, I've seen worse, much worse. Anything from faces being completely invisible, not just sort of slightly plunged into darkness, all the way to knickers drying in the background. So we need to be a little bit careful about what we're doing online, and that confident energy really matters, doesn't it? I mean, John was feeling exactly uninspiring, anxious. His lack of confidence makes you worry about him. So it's so important for us to use our confident energy to make people relaxed enough to focus on us rather than worrying about our well-being or indeed our surroundings. But the other thing that confident energy does is to really galvanize the audience and help bring them into your talk so they feel a part of what's happening rather than sitting home alone. So how do we bring confident energy online? This is the first mindset we need to have in our heads. When you're online, you're in close-up and everyone has a front row seat. You're in close up and everyone has a front row seat. It's intimate. The camera and microphone, they can see everything and they can share everything. So is it what you want shared? Road drills, darkness, England shirts? Think about it. Think about your lighting. Make sure you're well lit, particularly your eyes, because that's where we share trust and sincerity, isn't it? Noise, try to minimize it. The tech can help you if you have no control over the road drill in the street. Think about your own appearance. Block colour is fabulous, but don't take risks with football badges and maybe dividing your audience. Not a good one. Even your hair, and there's been talk all week, hasn't there, about Tony Blair looking a bit like Jack Nicholson in The Shining, so much so that people can't actually focus on what he's saying. Some might say that's a good thing. And the clutter. As you can see, I favour a blank wall. It keeps the focus on you. If you're going to use bookcases, which seem to be very on trend, beware, some people have fantastic computer equipment and they can read the titles on the spine of every book behind you, which is more than enough to keep them utterly distracted for the duration of your talk. Second online mindset that we need to take into account is how we can galvanize our audience and make them feel a part of what we're doing, rather than sitting at home struggling with that online back-to-back Zoom experience. And the best way we can do that right from the get-go is with our body language. So think about your posture, nice big confident posture, a warm smile. I mean, you know how difficult it is to smile when you're nervous. So if your content permits and you're not starting with something tragic, smile. It makes you look very friendly, approachable, and something that people want to get engaged with. And then think about your eye contact. It's a nightmare online. Eye contact, we need to look right into the camera lens, not at the lovely faces on the screen. So it's a complete nightmare. Looking into the camera lens, if it's something you struggle with, get yourself a little photo of a friend and pop it next to the camera. And then talk to your friend. You'll have a lovely conversational style and it will feel as if you're actually there in the front row with that person, making them feel really engaged. Interestingly, direct eye contact, only 59% of you have experienced direct eye contact. It's hard. Yesterday's contest, table topics, 3 of the contestants, I would venture, could have had better eye contact. So that's what we need to do to really inspire confidence and focus, bring that confident energy and help people to feel as if they're a real part of the experience. Next, let's look at connection. And here we have our third online mindset. Just because you can see the audience in front of you, it doesn't mean they're really there. They might be there in body. Are they there in mind? Are they really listening? Or have they picked up the phone and they're on their email, their Instagram, thinking about dinner? What's happening? So you really need to be doing everything you can to make your audience want to engage with you. And to keep people listening, we need to know who they are, what makes them tick, how to talk to them, what they know, what's valuable to them, so that we can give them something relevant. Now, relevance has always been important, but now we need to give relevance quickly. Let's take another look at John demonstrating relevance.
Hello, fellow Toastmasters and welcome guests. Tonight I would like to give you my presentation that I have written like a couple of days ago, and I hope that you enjoy it. It was a really sunny day when I wrote this presentation like 2 days ago, and that helped me greatly to
Is anyone still there? You completely switched off. Don't forget to pop things in the chat that when you're while we're looking at these films. He doesn't talk to us anything about the actual speech, does he? And we're sitting there in the audience thinking, what's in it for me? How is it relevant? In the room, an audience might give us a few minutes to settle into our stride and to get to the point. But online, we are so impatient, our attention spans are virtually zilch. Online, you've probably got somewhere between 3 and 5 seconds to grab your audience's attention. This is why compelling opening remarks are so important. And Patricia Fripp talked about that yesterday, so you might want to catch up with her video if you missed it. But we are hardwired to respond to difference. So get rid of all the sea of sameness. Get rid of that. Hello, fellow Toastmasters and most welcome guests. Get rid of without further ado. These things, people say it over and over, they're all the same. Think about how you can do something different. Start with a story, a startling statistic, even a quote or something really hot off the press. So grab people's attention, compelling opening remarks. Again, only 2/3 of you said that you were used to seeing compelling opening remarks in talks. We need to get that up front. And if you don't know your audience, it can all go horribly wrong because you don't know what content to put to them. So for example, let's imagine a non-technical Toastmasters audience, and let's see how John handles that.
Good evening, fellow Toastmasters. Most welcome guests. It's great to have you all here today. We're going to talk about the issues of a website for your club. And of course, you need to make sure, firstly, that you are writing the right code and therefore using the correct version of PHP. Now, 7.4 is really important nowadays.
I don't know about you, as a non-techie, I was really excited about getting a new website for my club. But when we got to PHP 7.4, I was gone, completely lost. So it's really landing that fast and getting the audience drawn in. Now, our 5th online mindset is it's about you and the person in the front row. It's very intimate between the two of you. You haven't got that big collective audience. It's you and the person in the front row. So you need to be relatable, because if they don't like you, they've gone. So how can you make yourself really relatable? And we all know how to do that, don't we, Toastmasters? Stories, 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 stories. I saw David Salomon's just arrived, Mr. Storyman. So our stories are so important. Good to see that 7 in 10 of you are hearing good stories from your from speeches, but I would say that we need to get much more dialogue into them to make them feel really current now, in the moment. Bring out your stories based on your real experiences, so that they're relatable and something really meaningful to you, that you can bring that dialogue. We know that stories trump slides every time, so much better than bullets, and yet everyone, 9 out of 10, are delivering slides in their presentation. Get rid of them unless they're really helping you. If they're replacing you, they're inappropriate. Stories stick, they make your message memorable, and stories are so relatable, human to human, they bring us together. So connection, to make sure that our audience is actually there in body and mind, and that we can be relevant and relatable. Now, change. John F. Kennedy said the only reason to give a speech is to change the world. Well, change hearts and minds, at least, I would say. Our 6th mindset, online mindset, is to give our audience a justification for attending back-to-back Zoom meetings. Make yours the one that's different, that stands out, that they can go, do you know, I've had a dreadful day, but there was one that I'm really glad I made the effort to go. That's what you're trying to get to. Speaking is our opportunity to persuade and inspire. It's our opportunity to keep ourselves and our organisations visible, front of mind. And it's our opportunity to build collective knowledge, further that the conversation around different topics and knowledge. And I would challenge you, fellow Toastmasters, to not bother speaking to inform online. If you have to speak to inform, send an email. Keep the online space somewhere precious and valuable to share talks that have perhaps higher goals and motives. Finally, I would say that when you're thinking about change, you need to really be properly prepared. I know we all talk about practice, 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 but is there anything worse than you making the effort to turn up, especially to another Zoom meeting, just to find that the speaker can't be bothered? The speaker hasn't bothered to prepare. The speaker is winging it. The speaker has nothing of any value to offer you. Isn't that frustrating? So what I would suggest is that to really make the most of our speaking opportunities, we need to have a clear message for the moment, something that's new. Even if you're talking about a generic theme or subject, what's your take? What's your angle? Bring that fresh set of ideas to the table. Because if you don't, to quote George Anderson from the International Speech Contest yesterday, you might as well be on mute. It's got to be new and interesting. It's got to be memorable. Otherwise, it's all a bit pointless, isn't it? To be totally unforgettable, to be totally forgettable. And we need to make things easy for our audience. Less is more, especially online. It's so easy to have too much content. Absolute clarity on your message is essential. Start at the end. Think about what you want to say to your audience and then dress it in content. If you're not clear about your message, your audience has got no chance. So absolute clarity on your message and a clear structure, chunking and signposting to make it easy for people to follow. And again, you guys are reporting that you're hearing speeches that aren't as easy to follow as they could be. So let's really get that clarity in there and make life easy for our audience so that we can have messages that drive change. So in summary, John's videos may seem funny and amusing, but I see worse every day. Online is here to stay. It's not going away. People have seen the benefits now of not having to travel halfway across the world to every meeting. It's not enough to cross our fingers and hope that one day it'll all be fine again because we'll be back in the room. The future will be hybrid, and we need to nail the skill sets and the mindsets to really pull it off and make sure our messages are clear. So online, it's a world of close-ups. It's a world of front row seats. A world where we need confident body language to really galvanize our audience and bring them in to our talk and don't leave them home alone. We need to be quickly giving reasons to listen to us. We need to share our humanity one-to-one with the person in the front row. And we need a fresh and relevant message worth hearing. The good news, of course, is all of this is learnable. So next time you're giving a talk and somebody's giving you some feedback, ask them to really give you feedback on these different mindsets and how well you're addressing them. Thank you for listening today. And do you have any questions?
Well, thank you so much for that amazing workshop speech, Lynn. And before we go to Q&A, I'd like everybody to give Lynn a round of applause, please. You can use your reactions.
Lynn, I'll
very
say
much.
something. I'm really sorry. I had your speech on the agenda at 9:35. So I got up really early, went out, took the dog out in order to get back in time and walked straight in and thought, that's funny, they're already talking and I'm early.
Oh.
I'm so
Well,
sorry.
thank you for joining, David. Thank you for
Sounded
joining.
great.
Great,
Oh,
thank you.
thank
So,
you.
Lynn, what I
Thank
want to
you.
do just quickly, though, is just asking anybody to put in the chat, what's the one takeaway? What's the one takeaway that you're going to walk away from Lynn's presentation with? Let's just have some reaction in the chat, please. What is it? Is it the videos? Is it John's reactions? Is it the compelling opening that we should be thinking about? What's the one thing? Please, can you just write in the chat? What's the one thing you're going to take away? We've got galvanize the audience. I love that. Yes, absolutely. Thinking about your impact. That's great. Any thoughts? Clear purpose. Stories, less data. Storytelling, the key, yeah, in getting our message across. Absolutely. Connection with the audience. I think that was a theme throughout Lynn's workshop, the connection with the audience. How do we make that connection? How do we maintain that connection throughout the period of our talk? So what I'll do is I will post in our chat. This is a link. And on this link, you'll find Lynn's book. Now you're talking, Lynn's book, and a free PDF that you can download. So free PDF and also the book that Lynn's written. So you can learn more about the work that Lynn's doing and all about the techniques that she suggests to be more effective and to shine online. So again, thank you so much, Lynn, for that presentation. We will have time for a Q&A. The Q&A is going to be handled by my co-MC, Ilaria. So I will be handing over to Ilaria to handle any Q&A. You can put your questions in the chat that will be picked up. I'm sure there are some prior questions that have been picked up by Ilaria, but we'll move on to questions and answers, and we have until 9:50. So we've got around 7 minutes or so up to 9:50 to take any comments, any Q&A. But as I say, I'll be handing over to Ilaria. So let's please welcome Ilaria to take on the Q&A for this session.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the learning stage. As Toastmaster, we never stop learning, and it was lovely and wonderful to hear Lynn this morning. If you have any specific questions, please either raise your physical hand or raise your virtual hand so that I can see you and I can call on you and pass the question on to our speaker, our expert speaker.
Can I pick up on Richard Honeyman's comment? It's a nightmare, isn't it? The whole aspect of evaluation and getting that balance between scaring the living daylights out of people, particularly new people, and giving somebody some really helpful and constructive feedback. So my tendency is always to let the room know where you're coming from. So if you're going to give something that's a bit more stringent, then let the room know that it's with agreement from the speaker, so that it doesn't feel as if you're standing there sabotaging them. So I think that that's always helpful to know. And it means that if you've got any new members in the room, then they can sort of sit there and go, that wouldn't happen to me because I'm never going to agree to them taking me apart. So it just gives people that space, that room for maneuver. So, but I do think that we should be giving some feedback that really does help us to improve our skills, because otherwise, what are we doing? Yeah, we need to be able to improve our skills so that ultimately we're not just talking to other Toastmasters, we're taking this outside of our clubs, and that we're really using these skills to further our own careers and the people that we know, and making everything stronger. So yeah, and if you've got something really, really hard to say, you can always take it offline. So, but I do think that we need to be a little bit more stringent in terms of the feedback we give, so that we really do help people.
Thank you, Lynn. We have a question from Mohammed, then from Richard. Richard, is this a different question or is a rebuttal? Please unmute yourself, because if his rebuttal makes sense, you go first.
Yeah. There's two bits. I put one earlier on about my own memory. Sometimes I get sort of I did a speech about reviewing my path. I finished a path about a month ago, and I got not done in the sense of I should have remembered what I said and not just go through bits and pieces on the slides, which is what I did. So that's my own trying to remember my own speeches, which is something I have. But then sometimes when I go to other clubs and when you see people literally trying to read, it's almost as if they've got their word.
Is there a question?
So, well, yes. Should you really try and remember your speeches? Like yesterday's ISS speeches, all of those were remembered, weren't they? I mean, they're brilliant speakers, obviously. Yesterday,
I would say that you shouldn't try to remember your speeches, because unless you're a trained actor who's used to learning lines and going to be able to deliver them with such aplomb, it could all go horribly wrong. But what I do think you should be trying to do is to internalize your speech, so you know that content so well that you can move it around, you can chop bits out, you can elaborate on bits, that you have the flexibility to move away from the script. And that comes from internalizing. It comes from finding time to internalize your speeches. So, when you're cleaning your teeth, you're in the shower, you're walking to the train, having a coffee with a friend, these are all opportunities to try out bits and pieces of your speech, and particularly the opening and the close. Make sure that they're really there and they come out nice and fluidly.
Thank you.
Okay,
thank you,
thank
Lynn. Mohammed. Thank you, Richard. Mohammed, your question.
Thank you, Ilaria. Yes, my question is, being online, I tend to forget important points that I want to say. So I cheat by sticking a piece of paper next to the camera. So any advice on trying to wean myself off this?
Well, if you want to wean yourself off it, then you take the notes away and see what happens. I mean, the chances are you will remember if you have taken the time to internalize that speech and you at least have that roadmap in your head. I always say to people, even when they're in the room, frankly, if you're worried that you're going to forget, there is nothing wrong with a very small note palmed in your hand that's just got bullet points of the key, where you're going, so that you remember, you see the word and it prompts you to go with the next step that you need to cover. If you've internalized it, you'll be able to talk the point. If you've memorized it, it could go wrong. So that's how I would encourage you to go forward on that.
Thank you very much, Lynn. Valerie, you had your hands up. Can you please unmute and share?
Yeah, I wondered whether you'd recommend standing up or sitting down if you're doing storytelling.
Oh, storytelling. I'd love to hear David's view on this, but I personally would sit unless there's a good reason to stand, because I think the intimacy of sitting. But if you're telling a story that's got adventure and movement and lots of things, then stand so that you can show people, but do make sure that your space, because too big, so how are you going to use your space? So you need to check very carefully how things are looking before you go live with a standing position. So yes, what is the content of the story, I think, will drive whether you sit or stand. David, do you have any thoughts? David?
I struggle with getting the standing one right. It's too far, too near. So I always do sitting. I like the intimacy. I feel you can use your hands in a way that creates movement. And so you can create, it's all theatre. So you can create theatre with your hands as well as standing. Obviously, in real life we do standing. But I agree with you. I love the intimacy of just drawing people in with your voice and telling a story.
Yeah, thank you. Ilaria.
Thank you very much. Do we have any other question? We still have 3 minutes of our wonderful Lynn here. Any other question?
Yeah, I've got a question.
Sure, please go ahead.
And I know I missed, and by the way, it shows 9:15 on the agenda, to 10 to 10. So I do apologise. You may have said this. I have a rule on bullet point or on slides. I only ever have one picture and 3, maximum 4 points, because I saw a TED talk once in which a guy said, if you have more than 4 bullet points, the 5th bullet point, it takes something like 200% of your brain to remember that as well. I don't know if you have, so I never have I don't know if you have strong views on that.
I have very strong views on that. As you can see, I've just done a whole presentation without a single slide. Slides have to support you, not replace you in my world. What's his name from Apple, the dead one?
Steve Jobs.
Steve Jobs.
Yeah, he speaks very highly of you as well.
I know. Famously uses 190 point. So one word on a slide. Yeah, it's kind of one word, one idea. You shouldn't need to have lots and lots going on. Sometimes you do. If you do, build it so it's not all there at once, because we tend to read rather than listen, and you can't talk while you're showing slides. If you're going to show loads of slides, then you know, send the slides to the participants and stay home. Have a glass of champagne.
And with this wonderful remark about champagne, I would like to again thank Lynn for being with us this morning.